Let's go to the Assistant Trade and Manufacturing Minister now, Tim Ayres. Tim, I know you'd be really interested in what happens out of this energy meeting today. The government is working on it. You're part of the government, of course. You're looking mostly at manufacturers. There needs to be a solution here, and one quickly, doesn't there?
Well, as I've said, I think we've talked about this over the course of the last 3 or 4 months, Laura, on your program. There is an absolute need for reform here. The government acted swiftly on the supply challenge in terms of gas. There does remain these questions about price. I was listening to your interview with Tony Wood before. I think he gave a pretty good overview, really, of the challenges that we face. There are sharp price rises that are exposing manufacturers and households to very significant cost imposts, and we've been particularly concerned about a set of those manufacturers on the East Coast who rely upon gas as a feedstock for their production processes. I think what you're seeing over the course of this week is the government moving to bring some of these issues to a conclusion, but it does require cooperation across the Commonwealth. There is a shared problem here, a shared national problem, and the government is determined to use the cabinet processes properly to reach the right answer, but also to use the national cabinet properly to make sure that we're cooperating with the states, acting on what is in the interests of all Australians and bringing it to a successful conclusion. Do
you support Anastasia Palaszczuk's super profits tax?
Well, I think I like the way that Tony characterised these issues, and I think what we've seen over the course of the last, over the course of this year in particular, is two dynamics. One is the war in Ukraine. Russia's illegal war in Ukraine has caused significant price spikes right around the world. This is a shared global problem. There are a series of countries around the world that are acting on these questions. Secondly, of course, it occurs against a backdrop where there hasn't been much progress in energy policy over the last decade. Now, the arrangements that states make in terms of royalties, in terms of their own taxation arrangements, are a matter for the states. What I am focused on, and what the government is focused on, is reaching a solution to these.
But it's a matter for the states. But in this scenario, it affects the whole East Coast and really the whole of Australia, because if the federal government needs to compensate Queensland for royalties, well, it's not just a matter for the states, is it?
Well, I'm not going to anticipate today on Sky, much as I'd like to, what the final result of all of these processes will be. Each of the states has their own distinct royalty and tax arrangements. There has been considerable work done by Treasury, considerable work in cooperation with the states to work through what impact the policy solution will have in each of these jurisdictions. And I'm very confident that as the energy ministers meet and as the Prime Minister convenes the National Cabinet virtually tomorrow, that we'll get to a landing on these. That as Tony Wood said earlier, that these are complex issues. This is not a policy reform that the government is undertaking for any other reason than that there are significant price hikes as a result of the Russia invasion of Ukraine. That is the only reason that we are in this position.
Sure.
We are going to work it through in the interests of all Australians. And then, as Tony Wood said, and I thought that was a pretty good interview, the big issues in terms of making sure that we have structural downward pressure on prices, that the transmission grid and storage and the injection of low-cost renewables into that drive a long-term structural downward pressure on prices is absolutely critical over the coming years.